Welcome to this episode of Sunny Silver Linings. Today, Kevin Brown is back for the second half of his incredible interview about unleashing your inner hero. Kevin is a branding and culture expert, a motivational speaker, and a best-selling author. Enjoy part 2 with Kevin Brown. And now, your host, the founder and CEO of IT by Design, Mr. Sunny Kela. Over to you, Sunny.
So how did you get into more of a leadership position from that point on?
I spent the last 20 years of my career with a family business that they kind of adopted me into their family. And again, these leaders continued to pour into me. And they gave me a great job and a great career. I became one of 2 non-family executives in this company that we grew to over $2 billion. And I was having the time of my life. And I never thought I would leave that to go become a motivational speaker. But sometimes life has other plans for us. But in the context of my corporate career, I was in sales, I was in marketing, and I evolved into this role to handle the culture, to really focus on the internal environment of our organization. Because a brand is nothing more than an outward expression of an inner condition. Mm-hmm. Right? Just like us as people, our attitude is an outward expression of an inner condition. Mm-hmm. And in organizations, if we don't get the inner condition right, we're fighting a losing battle because we'll never treat the people out there better than we treat the people inside the organization. Mm-hmm. And so I evolved into that quite by accident, but I fell in love with this idea of building people. I fell in love with this idea of creating an environment where people could truly excel. A lot of times in business, we make some critical errors, and I most certainly did. I made a lot of errors. You know, good judgment is the product of bad judgment. And I made a lot of errors as a young leader, trying to grow and trying to learn the ropes as a leader. Mm-hmm. And one of the mistakes that I used to make early in my career was that I would take my A players, my really great performers, and I would put them in roles where I needed them instead of roles where they could truly excel. And it's an age-old problem in leadership where we take somebody who's a high performer, a high achiever, and we put them in roles that we need them in because we have this hole in the system. We have this hole on our org chart that we need to fill. So we take our great players, and I say, I'll put Sunny over here because Sunny's a great performer, and Sunny doesn't do as well in that role because that's not where his gifting is. Mm-hmm. And so I had to learn a lot of those lessons. And in the course of doing that, it really helps shine a light on vibrant cultures and how great organizations exist. Companies like Chick-fil-A, for example, mm-hmm. they're known for having a great culture where they can take these kids who are part of the same labor pool as every other fast food place hires from, but something transforms when these kids go to work at Chick-fil-A. Something transforms, and it's really leadership. Mm-hmm. They create this culture where they're not telling these kids what to do. They're showing them what it looks like. They're pouring kindness into these kids, respect into these kids. They're showing these kids what it really looks like to serve. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a phenomenal study when you look at these kids because they show up here and they have manners and they have respect and they say, it's my pleasure. And they do all of these things. But that's a direct reflection on leadership because as leaders, we reproduce what we are. Mm-hmm. And that's a tough thing because we do that as parents too. Yeah. We reproduce what we are. Leadership is the ultimate in franchising, in my opinion, because we teach others our system. We teach them our system of values. We teach them our system for doing business. We teach them our decision-making process. We teach them everything about us. So leadership is really the art of duplication. We reproduce what we are.
Yeah, that well said. We reproduce who we are as parents, as leaders. And so that's so powerful. And when it comes to I was also, I remember from your book that you talk about the change and you talk about, the change starts with me. The person who had to change was me. And that also resonates with this idea of we reproduce who we are. So if we want to produce, quality players and from the like parents' perspective, kids that we want, that kids that we want to raise. If we do believe in that idea of reproducing ourselves, then we got to be better. We got to be a better version of ourselves every day. So can you talk to me a little bit about the change? Where the change you talk about, it starts with you, and when it started with you, it made a huge impact on your life.
Yeah, it was amazing. When I changed, everybody around me got better. And it changes your perception. It changes how you see things. I had a friend of mine years ago. I was a young man, and he gave me this piece of paper, and it was a crumpled up piece of paper, and it had 3 lines written on it. And he said, "These words changed my life." And I opened the piece of paper, and it said, "Nothing changed. I changed. Everything changed." And it is so true. It's been true in my life, in my family, in my business, my friends, everybody. When I changed how I see the world, it was amazing. Everything around me changed. And I started to attract better people into my life. When my life was out of control and I was living in my car, living on the streets, everything was bad. I didn't have good friends. I didn't have good habits. I didn't have good thoughts. Nothing was good in my life. And when that's your focus, you attract more of it. And so I had to teach myself to be an optimist. I'm not naturally a positive person, which is odd because I'm a motivational speaker, but optimism is a learned skill. Optimism is a muscle, and you can train yourself. And I don't mean pie in the sky, just pretend everything's rosy, pretend you don't have problems. No, I mean optimism, where you can look at the world, as my friend Simon Bailey would say, you see what everybody else sees, but you understand it differently. You process it differently, which I think is a hallmark of great leaders. They can see what's going on in the industry. They can see what's going on in their organization, but they process it different than most people. They're not looking at it the way everybody else is looking. So they see opportunities. They see where they can leverage change, not just manage change. And when we begin to leverage change, whether it's in our organization, the industry, the economy, whatever it is, we can leapfrog the competition. But every ounce of change, personally and professionally, begins with me. And when you understand that and own that, then and only then can you truly, truly start to impact the people around you.
It is so true. When I reflect back on my life, whenever something amazing, something great happened, that's where I changed. I changed my habits. I changed my company, people that I spend time with. As they say, you are net of 5 people that you hang out with. So that's when it changed. And that is so true, what you just said. And it just starts with you, your habits, and that optimism and positivity with discipline that you talked about. The positivity is so important, and it's contagious, right? So if we are positive, people they find you as a team member who's pleasant to work with, positive to work with, and so it's so important. So thank you for sharing that.
Here's a simple test. I tell people this all the time. Yeah. What do people do when they see your name on their caller ID? Are they eager to answer it, or do they just hit decline and pretend that you didn't call? Or, what do they do when they see your name in their inbox? It can tell you so much about people, because think about reputation for a minute. Reputation is that thing that goes before you and announces your arrival.
Yeah.
And it lingers long after you leave. And the question I always have for leaders is, what lingers after you leave? What lingers when you leave this moment where we connected or didn't? What lingers when you hang up the phone or when you push send on your computer? And it's just an interesting test. Say, what do people think when they see your name pop up? And that'll really tell you how mature you are as a leader. It'll tell you what your reputation is. It'll tell you what others expect from you.
Yeah.
And because reputation it's neither positive or negative. It is what you make it, and it's neutral. So if people are eager to take your call, then that means you're probably on the right track.
Yeah. I'm going to assume good intent moving forward when I call people, but I will start noticing that a little bit, that, okay, in my family members and friends, how many people didn't pick up a call? How many employees I called? But that's a really
Yeah.
simple, good test. And thank you for
If
sharing
it's
that.
always going to voicemail, we probably need to talk.
There's something that we need to talk about. So my next question is, Kevin, that what part of the book was the most fun to write?
About my son. We went to Disney World when my son was 9 years old, and we had an incredible experience. Now, my son has autism, and we've known that since he was around 5 years old. And when he was 7, he discovered Walt Disney World. And let me tell you, when these kids get something on their brain,
Yeah,
that's the only thing that exists in the whole world. And so he fell in love with all things Disney. And we went to Disney when he was 9, and we had an encounter with an executive chef who absolutely changed our life. And you want to talk about culture, Disney is obviously known for having a world-class culture. But this individual even exceeded our Disney expectations. And she impacted our life in such a way that today, at 23 years old, my son is still connected to her. And we live in Orlando, Florida today. We moved here from Nashville, Tennessee. We live in Orlando, Florida because of that one moment in time when he was 9 years old and he met this leader disguised as a chef who transformed our life. Talk about the power of one moment in time. Yeah. Talk about the power of one leader. Talk about the power of one connection. This woman absolutely changed our life and altered. I wouldn't be a public speaker today if it had not been for that experience.
That's so amazing. That the power of making that impact on your customer. And so as professionals, as like we are serving our client partners and people where as a result of our service, they are writing a check. But companies where they do really well, like Disney type of companies, and the experience that you shared, you see that person being your hero, your son's hero, not only it made that impact where we're talking about that today, but it kind of made you move from Nashville to Orlando, Florida. And that is the power of that, being a hero at work. My next question is, what part of the book did you have the hardest time writing?
A couple of places. I talk about what happened to me when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. I talk about that period of time. That was tough to relive a lot of that, but it was necessary because I think it's really important that people understand our story. Our story as leaders is what attracts people to us in the first place. Our story as an organization is what attracts people to us. Mm-hmm. And so when I was writing the book, I said I have to tell this story because it gave it context. Mm-hmm. But the most difficult was when I had to say goodbye to my mentor, the guy who saved my life. And, we'd been together for a long time and he got sick and ultimately he passed away. And so that was hard to relive that. But I have this theory, Sonny, that heroes never die. I think they live on in the people that they helped. I think they live on in the people that they led and the people that they mentored. And so I take him with me everywhere I go. Every time I'm on stage, when I tell his story, I'm just pouring all the lessons that he taught me. I'm just pouring them into my audience.
Yeah, it is. It is. So heroes never die. They're always going to be with you, stay with you in your life because it's, physically being here, not being here is less relevant than being here in your hearts. And it's so powerful. So what is the greatest lesson that you want to share? So writing this book, overall your leadership journey, what is the greatest lesson that you have learned that you will share with our audience today?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot, but there's one that's been on my heart a lot here lately. And so the world, when we talk about my son, the world would say that he has special needs. Mm-hmm. The world would say that he's disabled in some respects. And I've had a front row seat. I've been married for 25 years to the most amazing hero I have ever known, my wife, Lisa. And she is also the mother to this fine young man. And I've watched what she's done with this child. You want to talk about a leader. Now, she may have the title of mother, but she is a world-class leader. And I've watched as she took the storyline of our son's life and she rewrote it, because she knows that people will live up to or down to the vision that you cast for them. They will live up to or down to the label that you place on them as a leader. And she told our son, she said, you have special abilities. You have talents, gifts, and abilities as unique as your fingerprints. And we're going to do everything we can to help you become the best version of yourself. And I've watched her do it. For 23 years, I've watched her create this very, very fine young man. And so from a leadership perspective, the greatest lesson that I could give a leader is that we all have special needs and we all have special abilities. And our job as a leader is to help them meet those needs and to amplify those abilities. And when we do that, we can bridge the gap between organizational objectives and human realities. We can help people in this season of a pandemic. And it is a season. We will get through this. And I know we're all ready to be done with it. Mm-hmm. But you hit on something earlier about self-love and taking care of ourselves mentally. I happen to believe that everybody on the planet should probably have therapy. And if they're not in therapy, they're probably in denial. And because I think it's important that we take care of this. You know, we have coaches for our finances. We have coaches for our physical body. We have coaches for every area of our life. Why would we not have mental coaches to help us make sure that we're taking care of the machine that's running the whole show anyway? And so just know that we all have special needs and we all have special abilities. We're here to meet those needs and amplify those abilities.
No, thank you so much. Thank you for coming to my podcast, Kevin. Thank you for sharing your insights, your wisdom, your life story. And thank you so much. Now, where can people go to order your book? What's the best way to order your book?
Easiest thing, you can either go to my website, which is kevinbrownspeaks.com, or you can just go to Amazon and find it there. And I'd be honored for anybody to have a copy of it, and I hope they enjoy it.
Thank you, Kevin. And I know for IT by Design, we are ordering it for all of our team members, and we want them to unleash their hero. And I know if they can be the hero for their team members, we will have great culture. And if they can be the hero for our partners, they can be the hero for our partners. And we talk about IT by Design community. Our purpose is to build a happy, healthy community at work. And that community consists of our internal team members, our client partners, and our strategic partners. And if these three pillars can be hero to each other, we have a great, happy, healthy community, which is our team members, our partners, and our strategic partners. And I am inspired to have this as our next book in the book club that we have. And we have this monthly book club meetings. And this is going to be the book for our book club. And I encourage everyone listening to this podcast to go and order this book and be that hero that we need to be. And we have that right here. We just need to unleash that hero and make that impact on this world. And thank you once again, Kevin, for joining me.
It's an honor. Great to see you, Sunny.